So I know I'm posting 2 videos today. As I said in my last video, if you didn't watch it, last week was an absolute crazy hullabaloo. Normally I create and post on the same day on Thursdays, but last week I had a Harry Potter event that I was helping with, and so as a result, since I was running half of that and my coworker was running the other half of that, it was kind of crazy intense and I wasn't able to get anything done. That being said, I'm doing 2 videos today in order to make up for it, and I hope they are both things that will help you. I know these are both concepts that I didn't learn until very late in life, and that I would have appreciated learning sooner, so I hope that these are able to help you. The previous one was on info dumping, and this one is on the in late, out early rule, or exit early. Depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to a novelist, generally in late, out early. If you're talking to a screenwriter, generally in late, exit early, because you're exiting the scene. That being said, let's get started. So, what is the in late, out early rule? The in late, out early rule is a way to help keep your plot succinct and to the point. In other words, it helps once again prevent the info dumping that we talked about in the previous one. Now, if you need the info dump, go to the info dumping one. But if you don't need the info dump and ultimately it's just superfluous, you need to follow this rule. Come in late. It is ultimately more effective to come in late. If we were to come in early to most movies, we would find that it wouldn't be nearly as interesting. The thing about coming in late, quote unquote, is it means you come in where the action is or where the drama is. And this is important because drama and action are what compel us to keep reading. If you don't have that drama and action right off the bat, you're generally going to lose readers. Why? Because that drama and action is what keeps us wanting to read more. Which is why the in late, out early rule is so important. And with out early, it's the same way. It keeps us wanting to read more. Whether you exit your chapters early or whether you exit the book early so you can have your second one start off from your cliffhanger. Absolutely. Or even just not a cliffhanger, just don't tell them absolutely everything. Don't tie off every bow. Even for the end of your series, most people don't like having every single little bow tied off. They like having a few threads available to think about what might happen next. It's important. You have to have the biggest bows tied off, but there can be a few threads left. That being said, with in late, we're going to talk about in late first and then end with out early. With in late, honestly, it's one of my favorite things. I love when people come in late to a scene because it helps us to see who the character is, see what's going on, and it shows instead of tells. You can, but you can't really tell and do in late. Why? Because telling is generally a way to get around, like I said, info dumping and all that stuff. It's a way to just dump on the reader and just make sure that they know everything from the front. We want to figure things out as we go along. If we know everything from the beginning, why are we reading? So as a result, we need that mystery. The in late helps make sure that we have that mystery and that it feels more palpable as we continue to go along. The more we move forward, the more we feel like, okay, what's going on here? We're curious rather than feeling like, I'm bored. That being said, if you have a slow start, you can still start in late with drama. For example, a dramatic way to start with an in late scene, let's say you have to do a scene where the girl's parents are getting remarried or something like that. So that's important to the story, clearly. But you can still start in late instead of starting with her dad or mom getting remarried, whatever it is. You can start with the wedding and the fact that how does she feel about the wedding? I was thinking of Cinderella, so I was thinking like, how does Cinderella feel about her dad getting remarried to this stepmom? Or if you're doing generally like other types of things, how do they feel about coming into the story and not being sure what's happening with their relationships and whatnot? Or if they have other stuff that they need to work through, like you have some world building that you need to build up and some character relationships that you need to build up, how can you showcase those relationships in a way that's coming into the relationship late? Instead of saying, we're best friends forever, can you show that they're best friends forever by coming in late to a scene where they're chucking grapes at each other? I don't know. Sorry. Bless me. I feel awkward saying bless me, but at the same time, no one's here to say bless you. So that can help you see the relationship and feel the relationship instead of just being told there is a relationship. And if you come in late, I would say also don't just show the relationship. If they have a history, have them talk about the relationship. Have them talk about other things they did. Have them have their memories, a few little flashback moments and different things like that. Or have it remind them of certain things. That way we can slowly discover the relationship as we go along. All right. Why do people love in late out early? People love in late out early because, like I said, it helps us to feel less spoon-fed as a reader and less like you're telling us facts, and it feels more like you're feeding us fiction and feeding us bit by bit instead of just being like, here's the whole loaf of bread all at once, and then just like, because you can't figure out how to eat a loaf of bread, I'm going to feed it to you. That's how this feels when you're not doing the in late out early rule. It feels like you have to force feed us all this. Whereas just leaving breadcrumbs throughout the story that we may or may not pick up helps us to feel more actively involved in the story as a reader, and helps us to feel more actively invested in the characters as they grow and change and show bits and pieces of their new personalities. It can sometimes be a detriment with the in late out early rule if you do it too often. If you start every single chapter in late and end out early, you're never going to get some of that character development, like I said. So part of the reason we're invested is because of the fact that we've come in late and you've exited early every once in a while on a few of those chapters, but you're still allowing us to have those moments. You can't just have it be go, 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 fast-paced all the time. It has to have some slow moments. We need those slow moments to give us those really high highs. We need high highs and low lows. We can't just have middle ground the whole time, which is why it's important to have in lates and out earlies, and also to have a middle ground in between there. It's important to have variety as a writer and as when you're applying this role. So it can sometimes be a detriment if you're constantly going in late out early on every single chapter, because it's hard to follow that way and feels less emotionally and character driven, because emotional and character development tends to be a lot slower. So I would recommend keeping that in mind. Generally, in late out early is a perfect rule to go by, but just make sure you don't do it too much to the point where it actually becomes a problem. It's just like anything else. If you eat too much of one food, it's going to become bad for you, even if it's salad, because you need other nutrients aside from just Caesar salad. When you use it and when not to use it, I would say generally use it if you feel like the info dumping is not necessary. If you did a whole bunch of info dumping and you go back and you're like, I could delete all this and tell just as much by doing this tiny little scene, then I would say ultimately use it, because it's going to be so much more compelling to have the in late if you get rid of all that info dumping, if it isn't necessary. If the info dumping is necessary, then I would say go to the prior info dumping video and look at how to do it in a more subtle way and a more eloquent way. But if the info dumping is not necessary, that's a perfect time to use the in late out early rule. Another great example of a time to use the out early rule is for suspense factors. It's also great if, again, you're finishing a novel that's part of a series, or even just finishing the novel that is the end of the series. Ultimately, we don't like feeling like everything's tied off with a little bow, because nothing's ever certain. And so having everything be certain can feel a little weird, especially for readers, unless you're doing children's books. If you're doing children's books, this does not apply. But if you're doing YA or adult, generally we want to have a few loose ends, even just a few. It can't be the major things we want tied off, but a few of the loose ends, like whatever happened to this side character, we don't know. That's okay that we don't know. We don't need to know. In that case, I would say this is a great opportunity to use out early. Speaking of which, last thing I'll talk about for today, out early. Now with out early, why do people use it and love it so much? People love the out early rule because it helps give, like I said, that suspense, that extra drama sometimes that we need, that extra kick, that extra spice to the story. But you don't want to do it too often. If you do cliffhanger after cliffhanger after cliffhanger, then your readers are going to start feeling a little cheated. I know I do when it's just cliffhanger after cliffhanger. However, if you end it early where like, oh no, this terrible thing happened every once in a while, that adds suspense. That helps add an intrigue to it. But you want to make sure you use it like salt. You use it sparingly. You don't dump a whole can of salt in there. You just don't. You don't take the whole canister, iodized salt you buy from Walmart and just dump it all in there. No. You take a little bit. You season it. You season your story with this out early rule. You don't dump salt in this thing. No one likes an overly salted anything. So as a result of that, make sure that your dish or your novel is well seasoned with this inlaid out early rule, but that it's not too overdone. Make sure that with your out earlies you do it at moments of suspense and climactic events, and events that you want to feel like there is an extra oomph to everything that's happening. That being said, I hope that you learned a lot from this video. If you have any extra questions about the inlaid out early rule, I'd be happy to answer them. Please be sure to email me or comment below if you have any questions. Thank you so much for watching this video. We'll be meeting for our Adult Writers Club on the 26th from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the American Fork Library. So I look forward to seeing you all there, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.